side.
My name is Manoli Savvenas. I've been in Springfield for 40 years, and I own a jewelry store. I was only 11 years old, and I started working in the neighborhood place where somebody had a jewelry workshop. And I started learning the trade there. We used to do everything by hand.
Uh-oh, Buddy caught him coming off. He had Buddy going, but wait a minute, there's that thing you gotta...
Across the street from Battlefield Mall in the Brentwood Shopping Center is Manoli's Jewelers. But what many people don't know is that the pleasant master craftsman of Greek descent who owns the place, Manoli Savvenas, was a professional wrestler back in the 1960s and 70s, known as Mike Pappas.
Good to see you. Come on out this way.
Yeah, I learned about Manoli from some random person, as I often do for the show. People were like, hey, you can have this guy on. And they're like, he was a former pro wrestler and now he has a jewelry shop in town. And I was like, that sounds interesting. He is an entertainer at heart, and so I know he's entertaining people that come into his jewelry store and all this. He just is that way, so he's perfect to be on stage, as he was in his career, to be in the ring.
What kind of mistake is that? What is this little guy doing up there? They were, they felt kind of sorry for me.
It started with on the Mystery Hour, and I work on the Mystery Hour, and I'm behind camera one. And I've been a big wrestling fan all my life. And whenever I learned that Manoli was coming out, I was like, how have I never heard of this guy?
So I didn't know this, but my mom, strong-willed, beautiful woman, had told my dad when the relationship was over, and she wanted him to stay away, and he didn't stay away for the longest time, kept coming around until I was about 4 years old. She told him, this baby may not even be yours.
It was still stuck with me, and I called him up and I said, I really need to tell your story.
My wrestling name was Mike Pappas, and they called me the Flying Greek.
Manoli Savvenas was born in Rhodes, Greece, during a dark time in our world's history. World War II was still weighing on the hearts and souls of every person and every nation.
But we were really happy because the family was all together all the time. We didn't have no electricity. We didn't have no running water. We had to carry water from the city fountain, whatever you call it, and bring it at home. And we kept it there to cook and even had a bath or whatever. So it was pretty tough.
Though Manoli attended school as every child did, he was not fond of it.
If you don't go to school, you don't have well education, then at least you have to have something to make a living. And I learned how to make jewelry.
Even as he learned his new trade, the ever-active Manoli still found time to go to the beach with his friends and family.
I was really like a natural. Even though I was short, I had a good body. And we used to go on the beach and I play there all the time. That's when I got older, you know what I mean? Like 12, 13.
On one of those outings, he crossed paths with someone who would be the first big change in his life.
And they saw me and they asked me, they said, you look like you look kind of athletic. Would you like to box? And I said, sure, why not? So I did. I started boxing. I was really very good.
Manoli was introduced to boxing, and it didn't take long for him to become proficient in the sport.
But my mother didn't like me to do that, and I quit doing that, and I was very bitter about it, and I haven't done it until later.
Then one day, Manoli got an invitation from his aunt, who lived in Australia, wanting him to relocate there. After much reflection, he decided it would be an exciting adventure, and he made his way to the land down under.
But I was always very athletic, like I said, and I was getting kind of very boring sitting there all the time. So I promised my mom I wouldn't go back to boxing, but I couldn't stand it. I didn't keep my promise. So I went back and I started boxing in Australia.
He had grown to love boxing and was determined to excel. Manoli became quite popular locally after winning his first match. One day, Manoli was approached by yet another individual with a question that would change his life. They asked if he'd ever consider professional wrestling. Manoli was understandably apprehensive. He loved boxing, yet their argument was persuasive enough to convince Manoli to take a chance and step into the ring as a wrestler.
I went with this person and I tried wrestling and I like it. I said, oh my God, I never thought I would like it so much. I never thought I would become a professional. I never thought it was such a thing.
I remember sitting on his lap, and he struck me as a very warm, interesting person. He had this very peculiar way of talking. I was raised in the Appalachian Mountains, Johnson City, Tennessee, and people didn't talk like that around there. So I just remember sitting on his lap and listening to the way he talked, and I could tell, I could sense just, his warmth, though, I couldn't have been more than 4 years old when I have my most clear memory with him. And he said something really funny. He was referring, I think, to losing his hair at that time. And I just remember him saying, I have the baby hair. And it's so funny because last night, it was his birthday, his 78th birthday. And he was going around saying the same thing. He was saying, I'm 28. And he would say, look, I'm just a baby. I've got baby hair. So that was kind of just like a full circle moment for me right there.
Yes, I remember my first match. It was at the Olympic Stadium in Melbourne, Australia. That was the Olympic Games there. And I wrestled against, his name was Alex Giacomos. And I beat him in about 15 minutes. It was a very good match. I enjoyed it very much. And everybody told me that I had a very good future in wrestling.
As he became more seasoned, Manoli looked to challenge himself in new ways. He wanted to wrestle in America. He worked to figure out the best way to get there.
I'm going to go to the American consulate, and I can get my visa to go. So that's what I did. The consulate won't let me come. And I said, why? What is the big deal? You treat me like a criminal. I'm not a criminal. Well, he said, well, no, I'm sorry, I cannot give you a visa. So they won't give me a visa. So my sister met somebody, and she wanted to get married. So they sent me an invitation to come to the wedding. So I said, oh, that's a good excuse now. I got the invitation. Then finally, I went back again to the consulate and I showed the invitation from my sister. And he said, okay, I'm going to let you go, but you're going to promise, you're going to swear, you lift your hand up, you're going to go to the United States, but you're going to leave. You don't want to stay there. So that's what I did. I didn't even make the wedding, because it was kind of, by the time I get my visa, my sister got married. But like I said, I was stubborn. I wanted to come to the United States. So I did.
Once he finally reached America, Manoli went to the headquarters of the Worldwide Wrestling Federation.
So then I met these people and I told them, I said, I wrestle in Australia and I would like to wrestle here. And they're looking at me and they say, well, I think you are too small. I don't think we can use you here. And I knew that because they was telling me, there's no way you go to America and wrestle because there are only big guys there. You're very small. Just forget it. Get it out of your system. But I was always stubborn.
Manoli was told that with his size, he would excel in Mexico, even against the country's mythic wrestlers known as the Lucha Libre.
I told him that I'm a wrestler and I would like to come to Mexico. You know, I mean, you have to have guts to go somewhere you don't know nobody and you don't speak the language. But I always had the guts. I wanted to do different things. So later he told me to send a picture. I sent a couple of pictures and they accept me to go there.
I always knew just how much love, he had for me. And I don't know if you knew this, but I'm also a twin. So there's Constantina and Constantina. But Constantina, unfortunately, didn't make it past a week old. We were both premature. And something happened in the hospital that caused her to lose her life. So that's unfortunate. But I could tell, from cards that were sent, just that it, that it affected him. In other words, I always knew he was a loving person. I always knew the love was there and that he cared for me. And my great-grandmother, who pretty much raised me, just simply adored him. And she always had great stories, to tell. And she would just say, I think he's going to find you. I think he's going to come, And she would pat me on the leg and say, you've got Mike Pappas legs, which is not what any girl wants to hear, but, she let me know that I was part of him and he was part of me.
Manoli soared through the Mexican wrestling scene, facing off against Lucha Libre legends like the Blue Demon.
Then from Mexico, I called the Greek promoter in Nashville, Tennessee, and I sent him some pictures, and I said I would like to come to United States to wrestle. Like I said, I wanted to come to United States, even though they told me it's only for big guys, not small guys. There's no way you can wrestle there. And I was always saying to them and to myself, I'm going to show you I'm going to do it. And I did that. So he accepted me to go, and that's the person who gave me the name Mike Pappas.
As Mike Pappas, Manoli flew to amazing heights, becoming a crowd favorite.
In the 1970s, he's a top 40 wrestler in WWF. He made over 140 appearances for them. And he was a fan favorite. There would be times that he would come into the arena and people would start going crazy. You would think the champion just walked in the ring, but no, it was Mike Pappas walking into the ring. And the fans could identify him as kind of like the little guy taking on the big guy and the underdog. I mean, everybody buys into that story.
When I first saw Mike Pappas wrestle, I was amazed because my history was always based upon when I watched wrestling as a fan, and even today, I always liked the high-flying guys. And Mike Pappas impressed me so much with his high-flying style that when I got back to the office a few days later, the magazine office, and the publisher, Mr. Weston, said, "So what did you think of the show?" I said, "Well, there was this little guy, Greek guy by the name of Mike Pappas. He was flying all over the place."
And I appreciated that. That was like a job for me, and I really loved it, and I always wanted to do the best I knew how. So that's when I became the champion. I never defended it, but I'm still the champion, looks like, because I never defended it. And I can still defend it now, if somebody's interested. I'm ready.
Still know any wrestling moves?
More than ever.
Oh, you don't know any wrestling. Oh, hey, you got some pretty nice jewelry here.
Yeah, there you go. Goes up.
He can still do it. You haven't missed a step at all. You know
That's
that?
right, that's right. You see, it's like anything is like a bicycle. It doesn't matter how old you are, you can still do it.
Yeah.
So that's how it is. And especially for me, I did that for 17 years. So it's part of my life. And then plus, you learn to live with pain. You know, even if you get hurt, you don't care.
I'm hurting a lot right now.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. By the time you get my age, you'll be all right.
Getting in the ring with that guy, which I was surprised he wanted to. That he was like, yeah, look, I'll show you some things. I was like, oh, okay. So we're gonna film this, and he's gonna clothesline me. And about 3 seconds before he does the clothesline, I'm like, oh crap, I need to remember how to take a fall. And I did the fall, and he looked at me. And I'll never ever forget this, because for him to say this to me, he looked at me and gave me this weird look, and I said, what? He goes, you know how to take a fall. I said, well, I had to remember about 3 seconds before you hit me with it. He goes, that's very impressive. For a legendary guy to say that to me, who has faced some of the biggest guys in professional wrestling history and been in the ring, for him to say that to me, I'm good. I'll always remember that.
It makes people like he turns a crowd into an audience, and they're usually captive by whatever he's doing. And in fact, one time he did get banned from a Greek festival that we were performing at because he got up onto a table or a chair and he started like dancing a little too lasciviously.
Like, I have friends that will meet my dad and they're like, yeah, I saw your dad at Greek night and he was dancing up on the tables. Then he jumped up in the rafters and started doing pull-ups. And I was just like, yeah, that sounds like my dad. Still in better shape than I am, yeah.
Every time we would go visit the neighbors, every time we would go visit friends, every time we were in public, everybody wanted to see my dad do the acrobats that he did while he was a wrestler. And it was amazing. Everybody would pull out their VHS recorders and we'd start recording, and he would actually do a drop kick or head scissors or whatever he could do at that moment, at that time, and he would get within an inch of hitting these people, roll on the ground, do amazing stuff. He would actually do head scissors and throw a friend down on the ground, and the friend wouldn't even be hurt, and the friend would be asking, like, how did that happen? It was amazing seeing this stuff as a kid, and this was my idol, this was my dad.
His flair, when you just seeing the pictures in the ring, I searched up and down for a long time trying to find footage of him. Just hearing his stories and looking at the pictures. And seeing him, even when he wrestled in Mexico with the Lucha Libres, he was in the ring with the Blue Demon. And if people don't know who the Blue Demon is, he is one of the greatest and most famous Lucha Libre wrestlers in Mexican history, wrestling history. And there was a picture hidden behind a picture of him just standing there with it. And I'm like, Manoli, this is such a big deal. And I know to him it was a job. And I know that. And that's what a lot of wrestlers say, it's just a job. So he never saved anything. He just kind of got stuff and would toss it away, but it was his wife that ended up started saving stuff and making the scrapbook.
One day, I didn't know anything. So I had put 2 chopsticks under the broiler and thought I could go across the street to the grocery. And he happened to be outside and he said hello. And I said hi, and I went in, I bought 2 bags of groceries. And I came back out and he was still there.
And I said, oh, this is kind of cool. That's a pretty girl there. So I go there and I said, may I help you? And she's looking at me kind of funny, and she said, okay.
And so he took those 2 bags, and I opened my apartment door, and it was full of smoke. So I said, oh my God, my steaks.
So the smoke, the whole apartment is full of smoke. And here I am now, take my shirt off, Superman over here. I open the windows, I just rescue her.
So I opened the broiler, and he took them out and put them into the sink behind us and opened all my windows.
So I put the fire out. That's it, I'm a hero. So that's how we met.
And that's how we met.
I don't think anybody can top that.
Eventually, the two fell in love and got married. With Valerie at home, Manoli continued wrestling on the road. As he traveled the highways and back roads of America, word quickly spread about the great Mike Pappas. Each stop he made, whether a small town or a big city, he, like all the other wrestlers, gave his all to entertain the crowd, even if he was injured. The life of a professional wrestler is not an easy one. Manoli traveled to many events alone, though there were times he was fortunate enough to share the road with the legendary greats like Dino Bravo and Andre the Giant.
Like I said, at that time, we used to travel a lot. And then, like, we traveled by car, sometimes we traveled by plane. It depends how far you were. So I remember one time when I was driving, and Andre the Giant, he was always very polite, very good person. When I was driving, he didn't want to sit in the back because he didn't want to insult me. So he wanted to sit next to me. At that time, the cars, they only had one seat. It's not like the bucket seat they have now. So when I was driving, the seat was very close to the steering because, as you can see, I'm very short. So I remember one time when I was driving and Gino Brito and Dino Bravo were in the back sitting in my car, and Andre was sitting next to me, and his knees was up there on the windshield because the seat was so close. He was really uncomfortable, but he didn't say anything. He was just very polite. We were just driving.
Andre didn't realize that cars had adjustable seats.
Every time we drive, he had his knees up to the windshield. And then finally he told Dino Bravo, he said, how come every time I go with Mike Pappas, my knees are up there, and when I go in your car, I'm a little bit more comfortable? He didn't know you can move the seat back and forth.
Finally, in Montreal, Manoli thought he hit the big time, but something went wrong.
So here I am now in Canada. I got my papers, everything okay. But still they didn't use me the way they're supposed to do. And the reason is because when I went there, Yvonne Robert Jr., he was the promoter, and Booker, I don't remember his name, they sold the territory to somebody else. So the other people didn't want to use me the way Yvonne Robert wanted to use me. So I had really, even though I wrestled there a few months, it was very rough for me because they never used me the way they're supposed to use me.
With no great outcome from Canada and being away from Valerie for weeks on end, Manoli felt betrayed.
So it was very, very, very hard for me and my wife to be there. We've been there, we had I had a lot of good matches and everything, but it was not what I thought it would be.
Promoters kept bringing Manoli to their promotions, promising him a shot at big titles, but nothing ever came of it.
So here I am going to Australia, then they changed the promotion. So then the people they bought it, they didn't use me the way they're supposed to use me. But I still stay there, and we wrestled there. When my wife was there, I only see her once a week. I see her on Saturday afternoon, then you never drive in Australia. We used to fly everywhere. We live in Sydney. I stay there on Saturday, then I leave, I go to Perth, I go to different places, always flying all over the place. And I only see my wife once a week. So,
seemingly stranded in Australia with no option but to continue wrestling, he had to make money somehow. He was looking for a way out.
Well, while in Australia, we found out that Valerie was pregnant. So now we're happy to leave Australia, come back home because we didn't want Valerie to have the baby in Australia. So we came back to United States again. Now, when I left, when I went to Australia, since I was promised the world, I sold everything I had. I didn't have no car. I sold my car because I thought I'd stay in Australia for a year, but it didn't happen.
One last opportunity came knocking on Manoli's door. He was offered to wrestle in Kansas City, Missouri. Though he was now dealing with doubt in his current profession, wrestling had become his life. Not knowing what else to do, Manoli moved him and his family to Kansas City.
So when I went to Kansas City, the first day I wrestled there, I met a Greek guy, and I met a guy who is in the jewelry business. So I said, oh, that's it. I can go to Kansas City. And then when I met that guy, since I knew the jewelry business, I thought it would be a good opportunity for me to quit and stay with my family because I was getting kind of tired. After 10 years, I've been doing this every day for the last 10 years.
Manoli had no idea that his career back in Greece would be the thing supporting him more now than being in the ring.
Even though I love wrestling and I got a lot of compliments, I met a lot of people, like a lot of times I was very depressed about life, but when you go out and some people look at you and they say, hey Mike, can I have your autograph, And then they start talking how good you wrestle and all this, they make your day. So then you feel good. You get like kind of, keeps you going, you know what I mean? But I realize compliments doesn't fill up your refrigerator.
Manoli stepped away from the ring and began focusing on the skills he learned as a child in Greece. Now with 2 children, Manoli had to bring in a constant paycheck. He had no choice but to move on from his career as a professional wrestler. Later, Manoli moved his family from Kansas City to Springfield, Missouri, a city he'd passed through many times before while on the road. With a 3rd child on the way, he worked for someone else as a jeweler. He and Valerie worked hard and saved, and eventually bought the business. Later, after some success, they added their own storefront. Manoli had moved on and was enjoying a simpler life with his family.
So I searched, couldn't find a thing, and I was literally about to give up. And I told my roommate at the time, I'm done with this. I can't take this anymore. I'm done. This is killing me. I can't go. If he wants to find me, he'll find me, but I can't keep doing this to myself. Turned the computer off, and then she said, don't ever give up. So about an hour later, I got back online, and something magic happened. No matter how many searches I'd done, no returns. I typed in Kansas City, wrestling, jewelry store, yada, yada, yada. And an article came up that someone had written on him about having a jewelry store, but it was not in Kansas City, it was in Springfield, Missouri. And it talked about how he owned this jewelry store with his wife. And it had the name of the store, and I could not believe it. It was like, I can't even tell you that feeling of finding something concrete. But it was the weekend, and I imagined that they were going to be closed all weekend. So I waited until Monday, and I made that phone call. And I said, hello, I'm calling for Manoli Savvenas. And he said, this is him. And my heart started pounding. And I just like blurted out all this information. I'm Constantina, and I live in Johnson City, Tennessee, and my mother's name is Brenda, and I have a twin sister named Tina, and do you remember me? And it got silent. And then he said in this really soft voice, yes. And my whole life changed. My whole life changed right then and there, you know? Like, I can't even tell you. Everything just was okay, you know? I was so scared that he was gonna say no or hang up, but he didn't. He said yes. He remembered me. And then I can't even remember what we talked about, but we talked, and he said, I have a family. And he said, I'm gonna tell him about you. and he did. And I don't know how long it was, maybe 2 weeks, maybe a month. He flew me up to meet my 2 brothers and sister, stepmother, and they all welcomed me with open arms.
In Manoli's mind, the Flying Greek had faded into obscurity. For him, it was just a job and he had a new career. That chapter had closed. 40 years would pass and his thoughts seemed correct. Mike Pappas, the Flying Greek, became nothing but a legend, remembered by only a few.
Buster Cream Cream's in body. It's got more bodybuilding ingredients than any leading chef.
Sitting beside me. He watched Buddy, and he's going all out now.
Did my friends believe me when I said my dad was a wrestler? You know, this is probably one of the most troubling moments of my life. Another reason why was wrestling was very popular at that time. I was very young and I was in junior high. And, you know, growing up and I was telling these kids, hey, you know, my dad's a wrestler. And none of them believed me. None of them believed me.
Then one fateful day, that all changed.
And of course, thank goodness for Google and the internet and stuff like that. So I started doing some searching. I told my wife, I said, what happened to Mike Pappas? And I said, so let's go. I said, oh my gosh. I said, he's in Springfield, Missouri. That's not that far away. Well, that's farther than I thought it was, but it's not that far away. So, I mean, it sounds crazy, but I get in the car on Saturday morning. I said, where are you going? I said, we're going to go see Mike Pappas. What are you talking about? I said, I'm just going to go tell him thank you for the memories. I said, because really growing up, I mean, he was our hero. He was, you know, that was one of the posters you have out, the unsung hero. He was our heroes. He was the guys that we was rooting for. He was the guys that made us believe we could do anything we wanted to do. And when you saw him get in the ring against guys that weighed 150, maybe even 200 pounds more than him, and he would go in there and fight the fight. I mean, that encouraged you to do whatever it was that you wanted to do. You believed that you could do anything. You could be anybody. And so I said, I'm going to go see him and just tell him thank you.
Really good. Hey, champ.
Hey. Good to see you.
All right, brother. Good to see you. Good to see you. Hello, darling.
That's my Conway tweet thing.
Well, I thought people wouldn't remember me. You know, I thought it was just passing through. But I learned that afterwards. I'm very surprised. I had so many wrestling fans. They even stop now after 40 years, and they stop in my store and telling me I made their life better for some reason. I never thought I had that influence to people like that.
Without realizing, Mike Pappas, the Flying Greek, had soared his way into the hearts of many more people than he had ever fathomed.
Mike Pappas and everyone on his level back in the days that he wrestled are all unsung heroes because it takes two to tango. And for a big superstar to get over with his style and with the crowd, you have to have someone that he can work with. And Mike was one of these guys that was absolutely perfect for them to work with. So yeah, he was an unsung hero in the wrestling business along with a lot of other guys on his level.
Mike Pappas paved the way for a lot of people that are doing what's normal now in wrestling. And he's kind of the forgotten hero of it. And sometimes, you know, if you do your job right, sometimes people don't hear about you if you're doing your job right. And I think that's kind of what happened with him. And, you know, on one hand, that's kind of sad, but on the other hand, it's like, without him, I don't think there'd be a lot of what's going on right now.
This gentleman is here tonight, and we want to call him up and let him speak a little bit. He is our celebrity of the evening, and we want to, hey, he's getting his money worth of tickets. So anyway, let's call up our guest celebrity and speaker, Manoli. Please step up here. Give him a big round of applause.
And as I told you before, when I wrestle, I always wrestle the big guys. I still do it the same way now. I'm wrestling all the big companies here. I'm just a small company, wrestle the big companies like Zales and Halsberg and everybody. But I like Springfield because the life here is not like it's in New York where you go, 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 go. It's very easy life. And the people are nice, and I miss the Greek culture a lot, that's the truth, but we've been here for 40 years now, so I call it home.
His career in the ring includes everything from a 3-0 win-loss record over Randy Savage, winning the National Wrestling Alliance Mid-America Light Heavyweight title, and over 104 matches for the Worldwide Wrestling Federation from 1970 to 74. That would rank him number 33 in the appearances for the WWF during that time period. Whether you know him as Manoli Savvenas or Mike Pappas, whether you've seen him in the ring or he's made you a ring, this man is a legend in his own right. Through struggle and adversity, a glimmer of inspiration to those he performed for, and pro wrestling's high-flying unsung hero.